the Division of Revenue Bill 2025, which is one of the most important functions of the Senate and a senator, because it is during this kind of debate that we determine what goes to county governments. Many people sometimes ask, what do these senators do when they're in Nairobi? This is it. We are deciding what is going to county governments. When governors are giving out bursaries, launching roads, and doing all the employment that they're doing, they are doing it courtesy of the Senate, which has approved certain estimates to go to the counties. Madam Speaker, I want to strongly oppose the proposal by the National Assembly to allocate county governments 405 billion. Madam Speaker, a number of players have cited different figures. The Commission on Revenue Allocation, the constitutional body that is mandated to advise Parliament on allocations to county governments and division of revenue between the two levels of government, had proposed a 30 billion Kenya shilling increment from the last financial year. The National Assembly has proposed a 17 billion shilling increment. Madam Speaker, both positions by CRA and the National Assembly and Treasury are untenable because of discretionary expenditure and a few other factors that I'm going to highlight. Madam Speaker, the Senate has proposed 465 billion to be allocated to county governments, a position that I fully support. The Council of Governors has requested for 536 billion. That perhaps could be the ideal situation, but I will go with the Senate position of 465 billion, which, Madam Speaker, closely aligns with what the ODM party and the UDM parties signed up for in the 10-point memorandum. Madam Speaker, the two parties agreed to protect and strengthen devolution, to increase funding to county governments, and to protect devolution against clawback. And in the MOU, it was proposed that counties should get no less than 450 billion. Madam Speaker, for those of us who recognize a broad-based government, we can only recognize it if it is going to deliver 450 billion to county governments. Madam Speaker, beyond the politics, there's a bit of the science and the figures and the economics that will influence our decision as a House to decide how much goes to county governments. First of all, the Constitution requires that the basis of division of revenue between national and county governments should be the last revenue estimates as adopted by the National Assembly, as audited and approved by the National Assembly. Madam Speaker, this bill proposes that we use the base of 2020-2021. That is wrong, that is unconstitutional, and Justice Jairus Ngaah, not too long ago, in October last year, made a landmark ruling that said that where timelines have been specified in the Constitution, then they are not optional, they are not a suggestion, they are mandatory. Parliament must review, adopt, consider, debate, audited reports within 3 months of their presentation to Parliament. The National Assembly, by now, should have already adopted the revenue estimates for the financial year 2023-2024. And so it is wrong for them to propose or to purport that 2020-2021 should be the basis. On that point alone, Madam Speaker, someone is going to go to court, is going to challenge the decision of Parliament to say that it is unconstitutional to base revenue on estimates that are 4 years old. Madam Speaker, if you are to base the revenue share on 2023-2024, then it would be possible to yield to counties the 465 billion that the Senate has proposed. Secondly, Madam Speaker, county governments face non-discretionary expenditure. A non-discretionary expenditure, we had that conversation previously, are expenditure arising from national government policy. Community health promoters, Madam Speaker, is an expenditure that has been put on the heads of county governments. The universal healthcare staff, who I believe could be the ones who are picketing outside Parliament, and they are doing it rightfully, because you saw the headline saying the nurses that nobody needs. This is a sick country. You cannot have a situation where you have nurses that are not needed. We can't have a situation where we train and educate our nurses only to export them to Qatar to export them to UAE, and yet our people are still sick. Madam Speaker, we must ensure that the UHC workers are engaged in proper and decent terms of service, so that instead of them spending time in the corridors and the streets of Nairobi picketing, they should be out there dispensing and delivering health service, care, and attention to the sick people of this nation, and making sure that the Social Health Authority and the Social Health Insurance Fund and all those programs of the national government are successful. That can only be done if county governments are financed sufficiently. The UHC workers, their concern is when you send them to county governments, you're going to end up with 47 different employers who have 47 different moods and who have 47 different management styles. They want certainty. They want to be put on a scheme of service that is predictable. Madam Speaker, this is where we must call back the CS for Health to tell us how the Human Resource Advisory Council under the Ministry of Health, what it is doing to ensure that there is consistency, that there is transparency, and there is synergy in the employment of health workers at national and county governments. Health workers have cried for a National Health Commission, and President Ruto had assured us that the unveiling of the Human Resource Advisory Council under the Ministry of Health would be one step towards ensuring that our health workers were treated well. But with the picketing on the streets, it means that this is another spectacular failure of this regime, which we must correct for this broad-based arrangement to go forward. Madam Speaker, county governments deserve 465 billion because the functions that have been allocated to them have been kept in Nairobi. The road function. Madam Speaker, many of us, we go to Mombasa whenever we are going for conferences, and many of us are familiar with Nyali. There is a particular road which you cannot miss passing through. That is Links Road. Whenever a little rain falls, Madam Speaker, there's a part which is always flooded, and it is so bad that vehicles can be submerged in it. That road is a responsibility of the Kenya Urban Roads Authority. The governor of Mombasa is helpless. The governor of Mombasa gets stuck in the same floods. The same story applies in Nairobi City County. You have roads that are flooding, you've got pavements that are muddy, you've got pavements with trenches which are a threat to the lives and safety of Nairobians, and yet the governor cannot touch them. We must bring those functions back to the county. We must bring the roads function. We must destroy and demolish this thing called KERA. If it's going to remain in existence, let it be a parastatal or an entity that is run and controlled by county governments, and that money should form part of this division of revenue. We must do away with KURA, urban roads, and perhaps the only urban roads KURA could deal with, they need to be defined. But there is no business KURA has doing a road, bank road somewhere in Homa Bay, and when there is a problem, they are nowhere to be seen, and then the governor takes the blame. We must bring health, transfer it to counties, and fund it appropriately. Water, Madam Speaker, agriculture, housing, trade, markets. If we are faithful to the Constitution and fully devolve these functions, then counties deserve not just 465 billion, but the 536.8 billion that the Council of Governors have been asking for. Madam Speaker, even when we advocate for more funds to go to counties, we must call out some bad behaviors that we have seen in counties. Just this week, Madam Speaker, a county appeared before the Public Accounts Committee, a fairly small county by population. It has 10 elected MCAs. And because it has 10 elected MCAs, the law has capped the number of CECs to 6. So when you add the county secretary, the county attorney, the deputy governor, and the governor, that's when you get to 10. So the law has capped the number of CECs in the spirit that the county is fairly small, that 6 CECs can run it. But what does the governor do? The governor engages 36 advisors on all sorts of things under the sun. There is an advisor on the Equalization Fund, there is an advisor on cohesion, there is an advisor on things that you would expect the governor to have had knowledge of before he got into office. To make matters worse, Madam Speaker, a county with 6 CECs has got 31 chief officers. On average, every CEC has got 5 accounting officers under them. That was not the intention of devolution. Devolution was not supposed to fund bureaucracy. Devolution was supposed to fund development. And that is why I put it out there, that 47 county governments as the apex of devolution is a bad idea. I never proposed the removal of counties. In the original proposal, which perhaps was the real people's proposal, we said that we needed to have bigger regional tiers where planning, coordination, legislation could be exercised, but implementation of development could be done at the county and ward and village level. My proposal in no way takes away the county tier, but I would like to see a situation where we deal with this kind of nonsense, where a 10-member assembly is dealing with 36 advisors and 31 chief officers, and Madam Speaker, that mess is replicated across the counties. Governors must prove to us that they are responsible and they are prudent. Governors must also prove to us that they will stop wastage. We went to Uasin Gishu over the weekend. We found projects worth close to 2 billion Kenya shillings, Madam Speaker, stalled when almost 60% of the funds have been committed. Madam Speaker, a hospital should be a place where there are drugs, there are doctors, and there are services. It does not matter. It could be a tent. But there is no reason why a county would spend 600 million shillings on brick and mortar and say that that is a hospital, and yet there are no doctors, yet there is no medication, yet there is no vaccine, yet there is no snake venom that can be obtained there. Governors must convince us that they are going to be more prudent. Madam Speaker, governors must convince us that they are going to tame their appetite for corruption. I've seen a few governors taken to court. And Madam Speaker, having looked at the reports of the Auditor General, even some of the amounts that are being put on the governors' heads is just like spare change when you look at some of the things that the Auditor General is reporting. I was happy. I saw last weekend the Catholic Church, I believe, was running a campaign of having triple-deckers in Kenya's cells. And it is a very good idea because we will need triple-deckers in cells if we are serious about corruption, because we'll need to have many more governors over and above the 2 or 3 that we have seen fingered. Governors must convince us that they have the interests of the people at heart, and it is not just the interest of their stomach. Governors must convince us that their revenue collection systems do not have backdoors which have some algorithms that divert money into their accounts. And so we will stand with a higher allocation to county governments, not because this is money going to governors, this is money going to the people living in counties. This is money going to the people living in constituencies. And I want to encourage the National Assembly that we should never look at this thing as a county versus national government thing, because the people benefiting from these resources, the 465 billion that we have proposed, reside in those constituencies. They reside in those wards. They are members of this country called Kenya. So the national government should not have a problem if county governments then become the theater of implementation for the 465 billion, unless there are other interests that they are looking at by holding some of these resources upwards. But governors must convince the nation that the 20% that I reported to this House as being lost through corruption, through wastage, in the fiduciary risk report that I brought here on 27th of March, that they are going to take measures against it. Governors will come and go, but the counties will remain. The people in the counties will remain. Let us legislate for our people. Let us not legislate for the leadership. Madam Speaker, I strongly oppose the 405 billion proposal and support the Senate's position to grant counties 460 billion, which is consistent with our agreement as a broad-based government arrangement. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Kajwang. Senator Paul Thangwa Karungo.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity for also Kiambu to speak on the issue of the Division of Revenue Bill 2025. Madam Speaker, I equally oppose the 405 billion that the National Assembly